It was exactly 4:47 a.m. in Guatemalan highlands. 20 armed men surround a concrete warehouse in the middle of nowhere. They're not police. They're Gulf Cartel enforcers. And they're here for one reason: to pick up $200 million in cash. The steel door swings open. Flashlights slice through the darkness. Empty. Not just empty, stripped. No bills, no bags, no containers. Just oil stains on the floor where something heavy had been parked. The air smells like diesel and betrayal. El Tigre, the cartel's second-in-command, steps inside. His jaw tightens. He pulls out his phone, makes a call, then another, then another. Within minutes, the entire Gulf Cartel network is mobilized. Checkpoints activate, informants scramble, assassins get their orders. Someone just stole 9 tons of physical currency, and nobody saw it coming. 14 hours earlier, a thunderstorm hammers San Salvador International Airport. Lightning cracks the sky. Rain floods the tarmac. An Antonov cargo plane touches down. Heavy, slow, unremarkable. The manifest says it's hauling agricultural equipment for a coffee plantation in Honduras. Customs doesn't even open the cargo hold. The paperwork checks out. The pilot's license is legitimate. Everything is clean. Too clean. Inside the plane's belly, a hydraulic lift lowers a white refrigerated truck onto the wet asphalt. The side panels read, "Tropical Fish Export Commerce." Generic, forgettable. Exactly what you'd expect at a commercial freight airport, but the man behind the wheel isn't a delivery driver. He's Ricardo Salinas, 38 years old, cargo pilot, and the architect of the boldest cash heist in cartel history. Ricardo starts the engine, drives straight through a maintenance gate that's been left conveniently unlocked. Airport security cameras? Looped. They show an empty service road, nothing unusual. By the time anyone notices the truck is gone, Ricardo is already crossing the Honduran border. Inside the refrigeration unit, $200 million. 42 waterproof containers, vacuum sealed, hidden behind fake walls lined with ice and dead tilapia. If anyone opened the back doors, all they'd see and smell was rotting fish. Ricardo's forged permits identify him as a licensed agricultural transporter. Border guards wave him through without a second glance. Why would they? He's just another guy hauling seafood to processing plants. The cartel, meanwhile, is tearing apart the skies. They check flight manifests, interrogate air traffic controllers, track every private jet within 500 miles of Guatemala. They're certain Ricardo escaped by air, because that's what pilots do. They fly. But Ricardo isn't flying, he's driving. 60 miles per hour on back roads the cartel hasn't thought about in years. Dirt paths, logging routes, mountain passes that don't appear on digital maps. He crosses into Nicaragua, then Costa Rica. Every checkpoint, the same story. Frozen fish for export. Paperwork perfect. Refrigeration unit humming. Guards bored. The cartel is hunting a ghost in the clouds. But the ghost is on the ground. By sunrise, Ricardo is 300 miles away. The Gulf Cartel discovers the theft at the warehouse. Panic spreads like wildfire. Every asset is mobilized. Every border is locked down, but they're 12 hours too late. Ricardo Salinas and $200 million in cash have already vanished into Central America's forgotten roads. The question isn't whether the cartel will find him. The question is, why did he steal it in the first place? At first glance, Ricardo Salinas was the most forgettable man in Central America. Mid-30s, average height, cheap haircut, flew cargo planes for a company nobody had ever heard of. The kind of guy you'd pass in an airport terminal and forget 2 seconds later. And that was exactly the point. When cartel investigators finally cracked open his file, they found something that made their blood run cold. Ricardo Salinas didn't exist, at least not until 9 years ago. The man behind the name was Ricardo Molina, former logistics analyst for a private military contractor. Molina had spent years studying cartel supply chains, mapping routes, tracking cash flows, finding weaknesses. It was his job. He was good at it. Maybe too good. Because somewhere along the way, he stopped reporting to his bosses. He started reporting to himself. Let's rewind. 9 years before the heist. Molina walks away from his six-figure job, erases his social media, scrubs his digital footprint clean. Then he does something almost impossible in the modern world. He becomes someone else. Enter Ricardo Salinas. Boring freight pilot. Zero criminal record. Zero red flags. He rents a small apartment in Tegucigalpa. Buys a used Honda Civic. Files taxes on time. His neighbors describe him as quiet. His co-workers barely remember his face. But while everyone sees a nobody, Molina is executing the longest con in cartel history. He creates a shell company called Skytrans Cargo. Fake website, fake clients, real business license. It looks legitimate because he made it legitimate. For 8 years, he flies commercial routes, vegetables, machine parts, textiles. 95% of his flights are completely legal, but that other 5%? Those flights take him through every major drug corridor in Central America: Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Belize, sometimes Nicaragua. He's not smuggling drugs, he's not moving guns. He's just watching. Every time the cartel hires him as a backup pilot, because their regular guys are sick, arrested, or dead, he takes mental notes. Warehouse locations, guard rotations, which customs agents take bribes, which roads have cameras, which don't. He flies boring routes past cartel safe houses and memorizes the GPS coordinates. He lands at rural airstrips and counts how many armed men are stationed there. He delivers legal cargo to processing plants and maps the entire facility layout in his head. For 8 years, he's invisible, unremarkable, trustworthy. And then, 6 months before the heist, he hears something. The Gulf Cartel is consolidating. They're pulling cash from 5 territories into one location for their annual settlement, a multi-cartel meeting where debts get paid and borders get redrawn. It's the largest physical cash accumulation in their history. $200 million, one warehouse, one night. Molina doesn't panic. He doesn't rush. He's been preparing for this moment for 8 years. He already knows which warehouse they'll use, because he helped fly half that money there himself over the past 3 months. They hired boring, reliable Ricardo Salinas, the guy who never asks questions, the guy who just does his job. The cartel had no idea they'd been hiring the architect of their own destruction. See, most heists fail because criminals are predictable. They're greedy, they're flashy, they make mistakes. Molina didn't make mistakes. He made a character, and he played that character so perfectly that the cartel never saw him coming. His boredom wasn't a cover. It was a weapon. And when the moment finally arrived, he didn't just steal their money, he stole their future. But here's the thing nobody understood yet. Not the cartel, not the authorities, not even the other pilots who'd flown beside him for years. Ricardo Molina didn't want $200 million. He wanted something far more dangerous.